invites Otis over, and we go back to season 1, him going to play to Smash Bros at his house. But we also learn that Eric finds his way. He wants to be a passer, which is great for the character. Again, bringing that joy that he brings. That laugh, by the way, is one of my favorite laughs. I love Eric's laugh. He's such a great character. Meanwhile, we see Adam invites his dad to stay over to watch television together as a family, which again, if you go back to season 1, when we first met Adam and his family, they were clearly unhappy. They didn't like each other. You had his mom watching TV by herself. Michael was in the other room. Adam was upstairs, having sex with Aimee, faking having sex with Aimee. To see them on the couch together was just such a great moment. Eventually, we see Jackson makes up with his mom. Now, a moment I was personally waiting for, because man, he was pissing me off. Otis finally goes on this apology tour as it continues with his mom. He's been an absolute nightmare to her this season, as they get a knock on the door, and it's Dan, and we don't see the scene, but we're left to assume that Gene told Dan that he's actually the father of Joy. As we wrap up with Otis reading a letter from Maeve about their connection that they made, and she thanks him for helping her not being alone. As we know, they broke up in the previous episode, but she thanks him. Really enjoyed that letter that Maeve wrote, as she ends with saying, "Thank you for everything, dickhead," which is obviously a callback to the first season. As the camera pans out, we say goodbye to sex education. So overall, this season was, to me, the worst of the 4, without a doubt. But I'm going to get to some positives before I get into my overall negative thoughts. I did enjoy Maeve's journey, like I said, throughout this breakdown. Her coming out on the other side, dealing with the death of her mother, which was pretty sad in my opinion, to going back to America. Don't know what happened to her brother Sean. I personally don't care, because he was a prick to me, but I really enjoyed what Maeve went through this season. The acting was so good. But also, let's talk about Aimee for a second. She's come such a long way, right? She goes from being the not so smart character to kind of forgettable character to sometimes saying something funny every now and then to seeing the switch. And honestly, I think she's the heart and soul of this show, and such a strong character and just so kind. And her story of overcoming being assaulted and the relationship she ended up having with Isaac really kind of came together for me. Now, talking about my favorite character of the show, which is Eric. I love the character so much. He got to find himself. He got to be comfortable in his own skin as a black gay man, and in happiness for others. And he brought me happiness throughout these 4 seasons. Even though the show, sometimes I feel like they didn't know how to write the character and they forgot about the character at points. But it's the performance, and it's the enduring nature. It's the laugh. It's the care. It's the happiness. I didn't like the journey that Eric went on this season, but I liked the end result. Now, Jean has always been one of my favorite adult figures in this show, and I like the closure she got in this season of being a working mother and what comes with that and finding her confidence. But the only thing I will say, it was a bit odd that she didn't have like one last conversation with her ex. Were you all thinking about that? Like, we didn't see him at all this season, but let me know what you all thought about Jean and everything going on. And the stuff with Adam and his family, while it was there and then we wouldn't see it for a few episodes, it ultimately was a plot that worked for me. Speaking of work for me, Ruby, big fan of that character. I said it, I think she has the best arc of the show. I really like where she in it, and honestly, I would have loved if they would have given her more than just being the campaign manager for Otis and always chasing Otis around this season, because she just deserves so much better. So again, shout out to Ruby. I've always appreciated the themes and the important topics the show covered, and this season focusing on inclusion, fighting self-worth, bullying to make yourself feel better, self-identity, positive yeses while engaging in sex. So just to name a few of them, while some of them might have felt rushed or resolved too quickly, I have always said that I appreciate the show just bringing these conversations to a larger audience. One more thing I want to bring up, my favorite episode was probably episode 6, which involved the funeral, and that was just like a really good emotional episode, especially for Maeve. So, all right, time to get into my main negatives, and I just want to get the big one out of the way first. By the end of this show, and I've been saying this since probably season 2 into season 3, there are just too many characters. Not enough time to really flesh them out and their stories. It was just so frustrating watching this season go from an important main character and their plot to going to these side new characters that I personally just didn't care for, and they didn't really have much to offer in just my opinion. Tonally, this season just felt like it was all over the place with the tone. And I'm going to use this for example. We found out when Maeve learned that her mom died, it was like a really sad, emotional moment. And again, the acting was so great. Then the episode would constantly cut to these like moments of like cutting the tension. We would cut to Maeve finds out that her mom died. Then we would go to Michael trying to have sex with the art teacher. We would see Maeve doing the crossword puzzle and just trying to come up with a way of getting out of this deep, dark, depressive hole. Then we would cut to O joining the show with Jean. So it just kept cutting the tension and the emotional raw stuff going away with Maeve. It was just so many moments in this season where I feel like the tone was just like it didn't know what it wanted to be. Now, sticking to the negatives and focusing on in particular characters, Otis was one of my characters that I really enjoyed, right? The idea of this kid who has these sex devices and he's scared of having sex, and he's just a character that I just found to be like, that was just like an interesting hook for me, but it wore off after a while. Like, I say that this show has like one main character because I feel like it's an ensemble cast, and there's a little bit too many characters if you ask me, but if out of all the characters, you can probably say that Otis and Maeve are probably the two main characters. And the biggest issue I have with Otis, and it really shows in this season, he's one of the most, if not the most uninteresting character of the show. So to focus so much on him, the campaign stuff, the beef he has with his mom and Ruby and Maeve, that stuff to me, he's so uninteresting. Like, they make him interesting. He by himself, he's not an interesting character, at least for me. He wasn't always easy to kind of root for. I still liked him in the first 3 seasons. Season 4, I hated the character. Like I mentioned it, the way he treated his mom was terrible. The way he treated Maeve and Ruby and his best friend Eric was just, it was such a turnoff for me in this character, and I'm glad he didn't have a happy ending. I was not an Otis fan this season. Like, he was my least favorite main character of this 4th and final season. Now, while Abby was nice and befriending Eric, I thought her, Roman, and Alicia were just so annoying, and I didn't like whenever we would cut to them because, again, I just didn't care for them, their relationships, and their stories at all. Now, speaking of annoying, I think the most annoying character, like side new character, has to be Joanna. 99.9% of the time, she was just so on my nerve all the time, except for when she did apologize to her sister. She kind of lifted her sister up when she was in that dark mood and kind of being there as an auntie at points, but overall, I was not a Joanna fan for 99% of this season. Sarah, aka O, I didn't care for her. The back and forth with her and Otis, the super late lame apology to Ruby, I didn't really care for. Her accent was cool, but I wasn't a Sarah fan, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. The America stuff with Maeve, it felt like it was underwritten. It was just like the relationship she had with her teacher wasn't earned. Like, I like Dan Levy, but I didn't really like his acting was off. Didn't really like that character. Now, I talked about Jackson and Viv a little bit in the breakdown, but their plots were just uninteresting. I feel like it was just dragging on. It didn't really have closure for those characters. And just Jackson, the stuff with Jackson, him not knowing if he likes boys or girls, he didn't know if his genitals were real or not. Like, they didn't really wrap that up. And then Viv, again, it's a serious topic, and I don't want to undermine that, but it was just poorly and ridiculously written in my personal opinion. And lastly, I'll wrap up by saying this. I will remember this show for being fun, it being clever at points, especially in the first 2 seasons. There were characters that I grew to love, and I really do appreciate this show speaking on a variety of topics that I related to. There were some that I didn't relate to, but I know that there are other people out there that feel like they were being seen. So it made the taboo conversations about sex fun and interesting, and I will remember the show at its best, which to me was season 1 and 2, and there were some good elements of season 3 and 4. Those are my main pros, my cons, my breakdown of finale, and ultimately though, I will say, as a fan, felt very disappointed of this 4th and final season, and if I'm thinking back on it, they probably should have ended after season 3, but that's just my opinion. I want to know yours in the comments below. Again, I don't mean to sound so negative, but I just really love these characters in the show, especially the first 2 seasons, and I feel like it just kind of lost the momentum as it went on, and I just feel like season 4 was bad. But again, I want to know what you all thought. What worked, what didn't work, favorite, least favorite characters. Let's have those conversations in the comments below. And if I were to rank the seasons, to me, it's probably 1, 2, 3, and 4, if I'm being honest. But share your rankings, share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all for watching this breakdown, watching my rants at points. I really appreciate it. Before we wrap things up, if you consider hitting the like button, consider sharing to anyone and everyone you know that loves talking about sex education, as well as, again, leaving your thoughts in the comments. And of course, course, consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, helping me get to that next milestone of 60,000 subscribers. You all are great. I really appreciate the support. Check out my other reviews for sex education, and I'll catch you all on the next video.